Hi guys, in this video we'll be taking a look at the sim racing machines Fanatec Wheel Emulator with the Club Sport quick release. Actually, I purchased this without the quick release, so we'll be installing that too. So let's first have a look around the PCB. The Wheel Emulator PCB is pictured here. Allows for the connection of 3 button clusters. You get 2 in a Fanatec button cluster pack. So it's basically a pack and a half, plus connection with a hat. Unfortunately, at the time of recording this, the hats are yet to be available. I would have liked to review that too with the emulator, but unfortunately that was impossible. Whilst you can't connect the Fanatec advanced paddle module to this wheel emulator, you can connect a custom one to this, which is a little cheaper, and that essentially provides a button plate and connection point for some shifters. So having a quick look through this, let's now go and actually get it installed and then do a comparison with the Podium Hub. Assembly is pretty straightforward. Let's get it out of its box. It comes well packaged with some bubble wrap and these little beans and this cover over the top of the pins. You also get some mounting screws. Let's take off the cover and the sticker telling us to read the instructions. Then we need to unscrew the 2 screws that are put in place just to keep the assembly intact in order to put the quick release on, which we can do here. Make sure it's in the right orientation, then screw it down finger tight initially. Once you've got those screws in place, then tighten them off with a screwdriver. That's pretty much it in terms of the assembly of the quick release. Then we can have a look at the button clusters that we have here. These are the Fanatec button clusters. I only have 2 available, so I couldn't use the 3rd header. I just plug in the headers. Now normally you wouldn't screw this down straight away. I wanted to do a quick comparison with the Fanatec Podium Hub, so let's screw this in. Of course the cables are a pain, but you can swivel them around a little bit. Look at these tighten down very quickly for you, so we can have a look at it side by side. Obviously with the Podium Hub, I have the advanced paddle module connected to it. It's a bit of faff to disconnect that, so I haven't done that in this video, but it gives you a rough idea of the differences between them. And size, you can see the Podium Hub is a little taller, which might be a problem if you're using third-party wheels. So we're just going to put the R300 on this. First we put the washers down where we won't be connecting the button modules. And then feed in the screws. Sometimes I find I use the magnetic tip of the screwdriver to just jostle the washer out of the way. I want to get it in correct alignment. And then we can put in the button module. Again, we're not tightening these down just yet because we want to get everything in place before we do so. Once everything's in, we can start to tighten these a little bit. We make it tight enough to hold the wheel, but not too tight that we can't play around with the position of the button modules. And then just align the button modules. Once we're happy with their position, we tighten them down as tight as we can. Might find that you want to just move them around a little bit first, but that's pretty much it. It's lightweight, there are no shifters, so we have to have our own shifter somewhere. Curiously, the SRM Fanatec Wheel Emulator shows up sometimes as a Podium Hub, and sometimes as a Formula Carbon, at least for me. In this case, it was showing up as a Podium Hub, which is kind of cool, but the button mappings are not quite right when you have a look at your button clusters. Other than that, all is good, and they map perfectly fine in-game. In-game, as you'd expect, it functions pretty much as the Podium Hub would, as a connection to your wheel. In this case, just the R300 rim. And it's very solid. I would say make sure that you have tightened up your quick release screws and the rim as much as you can, because if they work loose, especially the ones that connect to the quick release mechanism, you could end up with some bent pins. But overall, I'm very happy with how this feels in game. It doesn't feel much different to the Podium Hub. It's a little shorter, but that's not really noticeable once you're in game, at least not for me. The buttons function exactly as I need them to, and in some ways not having the shifters in the way is quite freeing, especially if you're using a sequential or H pattern. It would have been nice to be able to play with the point of view hat, but actually as I'm in iRacing here, I'm more likely to use my mouse in the menus anyway. When I'm able to get hold of a POV hat, I'll try this out in Dirt Rally. But overall impressions are pretty positive. I had a quick release lying around, so this presented pretty good value for money, and that I didn't have to pay for a quick release again. Assuming you don't need the endurance module or the advanced paddle module, this makes for a very good solution. So let's weigh up our thoughts on the SRM Fanatec Wheel Emulator. It's a little bit shorter in length than the Podium Hub by Fanatec, which, whilst it doesn't make a huge difference when I'm using the R300 rim in the testing session, as you saw there, when we come to using a USB wheel with the extra length that those already have, we might start to face some problems with the Podium Hub and the wheel is coming too close to us. The added connectivity of the button clusters gives us some flexibility on what we add to our wheel, and when the point of view hats are released, that will be further value that you can add to that wheel. The SRM Wheel Emulator is very well built, and if you have a quick release lying around, attaching the wheel emulator to it makes a very good value for money. If, however, you have to go and buy a quick release, then it's a harder decision to make, especially if you're not able to get the wheel emulator with an attached quick release. If you have to grab a quick release yourself and the wheel emulator, then it's very close in price to the Podium Hub. Still works out a little cheaper though. Whether it's worth picking up this wheel emulator really depends on your use case. My intention for the SRM wheel emulator was to connect it permanently to a USB wheel, which actually I've done here, and I'll be reviewing that later on. As an alternative to the Podium Hub with just a wheel rim, then it'll depend whether you need to have shifters and whether you need any of the additional functionality provided by, say, the endurance module or the advanced paddle module, which aren't compatible with the SRM wheel emulator. Overall, it's a good product, well built, and a decent enough price. But if you need the extra flexibility of the Podium Hub, then this unfortunately won't be able to provide that. If you can get hold of the SRM wheel emulator with the pre-installed quick release, then that will also provide pretty decent value for money to you. So if you are interested in picking up one of these wheel emulators, I've put a link in the description below. If you'd like to talk about the value proposition it offers or some of the functionality that the new PCB provides, feel free to have a chat in the comments. Don't forget to give this video the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to see more of this kind of stuff. Until next time, guys, stay safe. Bye-bye for now.